Hare Krishna. So thank you all for joining in. We'll resume our study of Nectar of Instruction, and we are going to start with text 2. So let's offer prayers together and we'll begin our discussion then. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashatai Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gautuse Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sandhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gau Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Sorry for the mic, just 1 second. This WhatsApp is making a lot of sound here. Nana Shastra Vichane Kanipano Sahadharma Samstapakam Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Mahanyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravindra Bhajana Nahande Namattali Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujugo Shri Jiva Gopalako. Hare Krishna. So we'll be discussing the text 2 of Upadeśāmṛta. Madam Medhavni, if you're there, you are the co-host, or else Nitai Pran Prabhu, or else Harinam Prabhu, anyone can do that. I'm not showing any PPT today because it's creating a little challenge. So we will be reading through Prabhupada purpose, and simultaneously I'll be also discussing a few things from Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura's commentary. So we'll be looking at several verses from Bhagavatam. So maybe once we recite or once we discuss, you can share the screen. Thank you. All right, let's begin with text number 2. Let's recite together. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana sangascha lalyam cha shadbhe bhakti vinashyati. Atyahara. Ati ahara. We'll read word to word meaning. Ati aharaha, overeating or too much collecting. Prayashaha, over endeavoring. Cha, and. Prajalpa, idle talking. Niyamaha, rules and regulations. Agraha, too much attachment to, or agraha. You have to tighten it up from here. Screwdriver. Too much neglect of. Jana sangaha, association with worldly minded persons. Cha, and. Lalyam, ardent longing or greed. Cha, and. Shadbihi, by these six. Bhaktihi, devotional service. Vinashyati, is destroyed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Once devotional service is spoiled, when he becomes too entangled in the following six activities. Ati ahar, eating more than necessary, and Prabhupada writes, or collecting more funds than required. Second, over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, prayashas. Third, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, prajalpa. Fourth, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them. So there's two things, niyama. So there is, niyama means rules and regulation, we all understand. And another thing is agraha and agraha. Agraha means, like smarta brahmanas, too much attachment to rules, but missing out the purpose of the rules. And agraha, like sahajyas, who take it lightly in that sense. So practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement. Or rejecting the rules and regulations altogether, working independently or whimsically. So smarta brahmanas and sahajyas in that sense. Fifth is janasanga, association or associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And finally, lalyam, being greedy for mundane achievements. We have already discussed Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Does anyone remember what does Srila Rupa Gosvami says? There is only one thing needed to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Yes, that was lalyam. So the word here, lalyam, which is used, is in the context of for material objects of sense gratification, not in terms of spiritual greed. Just wanted to highlight that. All right, let's take a look at the purport. So 6 items have been discussed here which destroy bhakti. Before I get into it, I guess it's important just to highlight the previous verse here. So in text 1, all of you would have a book, I believe. Hopefully you should have a book. So if you look in your book that you have, the first verse says, Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jivva Vegam, Udar Upashta Vegam. Etan Vegan Yovishahe Tadhira, Sarvam Apimam, Prithvim Sa Shishyat. So, 2 things. One is close the door. It's coming out and we'll tighten this. So, Vacho Vegam. So, in the first verse, 6 kind of urges were talked about. And we discuss how it largely happens when we identify a lot with the body. And now there are 6 kind of, activities or, what do you say, efforts or actually activities are being described, which should be given up. So just quick second, the mic will be fixed. I'll switch on to direct. Right? Am I audible to all of you still? Hopefully, should be. Okay. So let's start reading the purport. Who would like to start reading the purport? Madhurati Manjri, your hand is up. All right, go ahead. Please start reading the first paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. I'm audible, Prabhuji?
Very well.
Okay. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupada. Jai Śrīla Prabhupada. Human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. Since all conditioned living beings are under the control of the Lord's third energy, this material world is designed so that one is obliged to work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has three primary energies or potencies. The first is called Antaranga Shakti or the internal potency. The second is called Tathastha Shakti or the marginal potency. The third is called Bahiranga Shakti or the external potency. The living entities constitute the marginal potency and they are situated between the internal and external potencies. Being subordinate as eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Jivatmas or atomic living entities must remain under the control of.
Hare Krishna, we somehow lost your voice. We can't hear you, mother. Oh, there is an internet issue probably. Personality of Godhead, the Jivatmas, our atomic living entities must remain under the control of either the internal or external potency. When they are under the control of the internal potency, they display their natural constitutional activity, namely constant engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. This is stated in Bhagavad Gita 9, chapter verse number 13. Hare Krishna. All right. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakritim ashitaha. So those who work under the internal potency of the Lord, they are said to be Mahatmas. Bhajanti ananaya manaso nyatva bhutadim avvayam. O son of Pratha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So just a quick recap of this particular paragraph. So Prabhupada is talking about his famous statement, human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. And then Prabhupada begins to talk about how we are Tathastha Shakti and there is Antaranga and Bhahiranga Shakti. As a human, as a Jivatma, we have the choice to make, we can take shelter either of Antaranga or Bhahiranga Shakti. One who function under Antaranga Shakti, what are their activities? Prabhupada goes 9th chapter, verse number 13. They are said to be Mahatmas and they're always engaged in the devotion service of the Lord. And there is no prayasa. A point to be noted here. And there is no prayasa when you're engaged in your original constitutional position. Hare Krishna. Why am I signed out from my own Zoom account? ठीक है, जो भी है. Somebody signed in again? Check करो. Sorry, I just got distracted. So like this is mentioned, prayasa we were talking about. So when you're engaged in the original constitutional position, then there is no prayasa. That was the point here. Now Prabhupada goes ahead and talks about the meaning of the word Mahatma. All right. Let I plan to read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandatam. O son of Pratha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. The word Mahatma refers to those who are broad-minded, not cripple-minded. Cripple-minded person always engaged in satisfying their senses, sometimes expand their activities in order to do good for others through some is like nationalism, humanitarianism, and altruism. They may reject personal sense gratification for the sense gratification of others, like the members of the family, community, or society, either national or international. Actually, all these activities are extended sense gratification, from personal to communal to social. These activities may be very good for the material point of view, but they have no spiritual value. The basis of such activities is sense gratification, either personal or extended. Only when a person gratifies the sense of the Supreme Lord can he be called a Mahatma or a broad-minded person. Should I continue reading, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, there is, I think, power cut at Hinjewadi, I believe. So we'll just wait what Madan Sundar Prabhu's instructions. Okay, Prabhuji is joined now again.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you now.
Internet is back now. Okay. Hare Krishna. How would we conduct a class like this? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Signed out. Who's signing it again? Go and check Mr. Kiran. Is he there on the account? Hare Krishna. Am I audible now?
Yes, Prabhu, now you're audible.
Gauranga. Okay. चल रहा है अभी? Can you confirm and say, then I'll switch. ठीक है. All right, till the time this hotspot works, we'll do it. Madam. All right, it seems to be coming. Okay, Nitai Pran Prabhu. Acha, Vishwakan has logged in, I guess. Okay, fine. All right.
Should I
Nitai Pran
read
Prabhu,
again?
you're reading the. Yes, please. Sorry for that
All right.
disturbance. Go ahead, read that
No,
again.
that's okay. O son of Pratha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inobsessible. The word Mahatma refers to those who are broad-minded, not cripple-minded. Cripple-minded person always engage in satisfying their senses, sometimes expand their activities in order to do good for others through some ism, like nationalism, humanitarianism, and altruism. They may reject personal sense gratification for the sense gratification of others, like the members of their family, community, or society, either national or international. Actually, all these activities are extended sense gratification from personal to communal to social. These activities may be very good from the material point of view, but they have no spiritual value. The basis of such activities is sense gratification, either personal or extended. Only when a person gratifies the sense of the Supreme Lord can he be called Mahatma or broad-minded person.
Next paragraph.
Okay. In the above quoted verse from Bhagavad Gita, the word Devyam Prakritim refers to the control of the eternal potency or pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This pleasure potency is manifested as Srimati Radharani or her expansion Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. When the individual jiva souls are under the control of the eternal energy, their engagement is the satisfaction of Krishna or Vishnu. This is the position of a Mahatma. If one is not Mahatma, he is Duratma or a cripple-minded person. Such mentally crippled Duratma are put under the control of Lord's external potency, Mahamaya.
Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada is kind of creating a background here of a discussion. What is mentioned in this particular word was before he begins to speak about all of those elements. So Yogamaya and Mahamaya has been discussed so far. In general, anyone who's born in this world is under the influence of Mahamaya, which is not the default conditioning. It's an awkward situation of a living entity. Our original constitutional position is to be under the shelter of Yogamaya. Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. So that's the thing. But we are put into an awkward situation. All right, Mother Satyavati, please read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Danat pranams. Indeed, all entities within this material world are under the control of Mahamaya, whose business is to subject them to the influence of threefold miseries: Adi Daivika Klesha, sufferings caused by the demigods, such as droughts, earthquakes, and storms; Adi Bhautika Klesha, sufferings caused by other living entities like insects or enemies; and Adhyatmika Klesha, sufferings caused by one's own body and mind, such as mental and physical infirmities. Daiva Bhutatma Hetavaha, the conditioned soul subjected to these three miseries by the control of the external energy suffer various difficulties. The main problem
here, Srila Prabhupada is kind of establishing a point that, bhakti is the only purpose of life. If in case we are not engaged, so if we are thinking that this world is a place of pleasure and happiness, our all attempts would be futile. Shrama eva hi kevalam. So now Srila Prabhupada is talking about when you're under the control of Mahamaya, and the sign of that is trying to enjoy this world, and then you will be put into suffering because of Adibhatika, Adidevika, and Adhyatmika klesha. Because we have to give up things as mentioned in this verse. So before I give things, and these are not things just like, giving up some eating habits. These are our default, not default, these are conditionings which have almost become like default. We by default act in a certain way. And to change those conditionings, we need a very strong reasoning why I need to give it up. And at times we might have to we might have to tolerate those things. We might need to push ourselves not to do it. So therefore, Prabhupada is establishing a philosophical background. So next paragraph, Prabhupada says the main problem confronting the conditioned living entities are Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. Okay, Rishikesh Prabhu, go ahead. Read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The main problem confronting the conditioned souls is the repetition of birth, old age, disease, and death. In the material world, one has to work for the maintenance of the body and soul. But how can one perform such work in a way that is favorable for the execution of Krishna consciousness? Everyone requires possessions such as food grains, clothing, money, and other things necessary for the maintenance of the body. But one should not collect more than necessary for his actual basic needs. If this natural principle is followed, there will be no difficulty in maintaining the body.
Hare Krishna. Now Srila Prabhupada begins to speak about the 6 elements. And the very first is Atyahara. So let's take a look what Prabhupada defines about it. Madharanjana, please read the next paragraph.
According to nature's arrangement, living entities lower on the evolutionary scale do not eat or collect more than necessary. Consequently, in the animal kingdom, there is generally no economic problem or scarcity of necessity. If a bag of rice is placed in a public place, birds will come to eat a few grains and go away. A human being, however, will take away the whole bag. He will eat all his stomach can hold and then try to keep the rest in storage. According to scriptures, this collecting of more than necessary atyahara is prohibited. Now the entire world is suffering because of it.
Hare Krishna. We'll go element by element. This was about Atyahara. Okay. So let's focus on this. So this is how Srila Prabhupada talks about. Prabhupada says, over collecting, and Prabhupada gives an example of, collecting, what is that? Grains. He will eat all his stomach and hold and then try to keep the rest in storage. According to this collection of more than necessary is Atyahara. Will refer to Bhakti Alok by Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, where he goes more into analysis of it and gives some very profound insights into these elements. So first of all, Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, if just to consider Ati Ahar, Ati means Ati kar dena, bahut jada. Ahar means khana. Just to think that Rupa Goswami is talking about overeating, then it would not be appropriate in itself. The reason is because in the first verse, Vacha, Vegam, Manasa, Krodha, Vegam, Jivva, Vegam, Udar, Upasha. Jivva and Udar has been already addressed. So, we have to tolerate the urges. So, which means overeating has been addressed. So, here, now Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura gives some nice understanding about it. He says the primary meaning of ahar is eating. But the word eating actually means bhojana. Bhojana, the root word is bhoga. So bhoga means bhoga aishwarya prasaktana. So the root word is to enjoy. So here, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura makes a point, and he quotes Srila Rupa Gosvami from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and he quotes the definition of Yukta Vairagya. And he says, Rupa Goswami says, Anasaktasya Vishayan Yataharam Upayunjataha Nirvanda Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. The meaning of this verse is, as quoted, written by Srila Rupa Goswami, the Vairagya of that person who employs objects suitable for devotional development while remaining detached from them is said to be suitable for bhakti. Yukta Vairagya. suitable detachment, which means, okay, let me ask all of you this question. What is the definition of Yukta Vairagya according to you? We have discussed this in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Let's take a look. इतने सारे हाथ खड़े हैं मेरे ख्याल से पढ़ने के लिए. We can have some physical hands so that I know who wants to answer. Madan Sundar, your hand is up. Go ahead.
It means using everything for the service of the Lord, Prabhuji. All whatever material things also using in the service of the Lord.
So, okay, let's put it this way. When things are used in the service of the Lord, but not for one's enjoyment, that would be a complete statement. Otherwise it could be we are saying we are using in the service of the Lord, but it could be for my own enjoyment, for my own agenda. So Yukta Vairagya means the spirit of enjoyment is not there. And that is the meaning of giving up atihara or atyahara, to engage anything and everything in the service of the Lord. In other words, I'll just read out what Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura writes. The purport is that if one accepts material objects as objects of enjoyment, then it becomes atyahara. But if one accepts object as a mercy of the Lord, using them as necessary in a way favorable for a bhakti, it is not atyahara. If you look back at 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the first verse, where Arjuna asked the question, what is renunciation, what is sannyas, and what is tyaga? There we had a discussion on what does renunciation means. And Lord Shri Krishna says, or Bhagavan Krishna कहते हैं, renunciation means to give up the desire to enjoy the results of one's action. Therefore, if you look at it from this perspective, Śrīla Prabhupada had given a background. We are in a wrong place, trying to endeavor very hard to find happiness in a place where it doesn't exist. We are Tatashta Shakti, Antaranga and Bahiranga. Therefore, Prabhupada spoke about that. When one accepts the sincerity, objects of the senses as mercy of the Lord, it becomes Yukta Ahar, a regulated acceptance of objects within bhakti. Another interesting thing that Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura does while giving his description of these elements, he also adds an element of what it means for a grahastha and what it means for a renunciate. So, हम दोनों कैटेगरी के लोग हैं यहाँ पर, वो पढ़ लेते हैं. गृहस्थ के लिए क्या कहते हैं भक्तिविनोद ठाकुर on the subject of Tihara? All instructions have two types of functions in relation to the householder and to the renunciate. The householder can gather for maintaining his family, spending money, which is attained and gathered by dharmic means. He can pass his life serving the Lord and the devotees, maintaining his family and serving guests. Though having qualification for gathering and earning, if the householder attempts to gather extra wealth, he will create an obstacle to practicing bhakti and in attaining Krishna's mercy. Without doubt, gathering extra and earning extra is atyahara. Gathering extra means having things in the house which are not necessary, more furniture probably, and earning extra, stacking up money in the. Now, watch for the monks. If a monk is not satisfied with what he begs every day, he is subject to the fault of atyahara. Let's translate the modern context. If he is not satisfied what the ashram provides and is looking at the householders, when would the householder invite me? When will I get a chance to go and visit a householder to honor lunch prasadam, as they call Brahman Bhojan? Then this is atyahara. He has to be content with what is provided. If he enjoys more than necessary after attaining nice objects, it is a fault of atyahara. So when you look at it, the point here is atyahara in essence means if anything done in the spirit of enjoyment other than the service of the Lord becomes atyahara. However, for maintaining the body, relishing Krishna prasadam, which is what is provided, let's say, which is cooked in the house of a householder or what is being provided in the ashram to a brahmachari, that's all within the limits of bhakti. Just to clarify that. All right, this was about ati ahar or atyahara. So here Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura mentioned gathering things more than necessary. So maybe once in a while we can take a look, take a stock of our house. What do I think which are not necessary? So when they're in good condition, it's good to donate. Not when they're not in usable condition. All right, let's go to Prayashas. What is Prayasha? Let's read the next paragraph. Mithul Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandvat. Collecting and eating more than necessary also causes prayasa or unnecessary endeavor. By God's arrangement, anyone in any part of the world can live very peacefully if he has some land and a milk cow. There is no need for men to move from one place to another to earn a livelihood. For one can produce food grains locally and get milk from cows. That can solve all economic problems. Fortunately, man has been given higher intelligence for the cultivation of Krishna consciousness or the understanding of God, one's relationship with Him, and the ultimate goal of life, love of God. Unfortunately, so-called civilized man, not caring for God realization, utilizes his intelligence to get more than necessary and simply eat to satisfy the tongue. By God's arrangement, there is sufficient scope for the production of milk and grains for human beings all over the world. But instead of using his higher intelligence to cultivate God consciousness, so-called intelligent men to misuse their intelligence to produce many unnecessary and unwanted things. Thus, factories, slaughterhouses, brothels, and liquor shops are opened. If people are advised not to collect too many goods, eat too much, or work unnecessary to possess artificial amenities, they think that they are being advised to return to a primitive way of life. Generally, people do not like to accept plain living and high thinking. That is their unfortunate position.
Hare Krishna. So Prayasha or Prayasas means to endeavor. And question is raised here. If it is said, Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas, if my constitutional position is to be the servant of the Lord, then do I need to make an endeavor in spiritual life? In material life, we have to make a lot of endeavors. Yes or no? To be able to stand on our feet, to be able to make a living, we have to go through almost close to, let's say 16, or we can say 16 plus years of education. 16 साल मेहनत करने के बाद फिर आपको कहीं चपरासी की जॉब मिलती है, right? And then what you call as level 1 and level 2, level 3, and you spend time making a progress. Even if you get a job, there's no guarantee of sustainability. You still have to continue to struggle. So we all understand that in our material life, to be able to really do anything, we have to do so much endeavor. Question arises, do I need to make an endeavor in spiritual life if it is my original constitutional position? Answer is yes. We also need to make an endeavor in a spiritual life. Would anyone like to say something on this? If Krishna Bhakti is my original situation, then why do I need to make endeavor or prayasa in spiritual life? Now, material life is not an original situation, so I have to make a lot of endeavor. But in Bhakti, why do I need to make endeavor? Do I need to make endeavor first of all? Yes or no? If in case we say we have to make endeavor, then why we need to make an endeavor? I don't know. There are so many vertical hands up. Virtual hands are up. These are for reading. Those who want to say, give an answer, raise your physical hand. All right. I see a hand of Mother Manisha and then Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu. Mother Kangya. Mother Manisha, somewhere you were there. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, we are in material world and surrounded by the material thing. So because the surroundings are like, and we are having material body also. So we should endeavor for spirituality.
Okay.
Although our
all right.
servant, but because now we have been put in the material world, where we have forgotten our original Swarupa, so we should endeavor to get back to the spiritual platform.
Okay, so you're saying you sound like a pro endeavor for spiritual life. You sounded like that. We should endeavor. Okay, good. I lost you again. There are so many screens. Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu.
I think what Mataji said, it is the same thing, Prabhu, because we have forgotten it is just the covered, and we have to uncover it to that extent. Yeah. It is
Okay.
covered. Our Swarup is covered. Now we have to do the prayasa to uncover it. Yeah, something like
So
that.
we have
Cleaning
to do a prayasa to uncover it.
or clean it.
Mother
Yeah.
Kishori Rani.
Yes, Prabhu, in continuation with what these two said, we have to do Cheto Darpana Marjanam. So then only we can come back to our original constitutional position. And for that, we need to endeavor a lot by doing our sadhana and other practices.
Endeavor is okay. A lot, I don't think so. Despite being a sadhaka, a lot endeavor goes in maintaining body. Out of 24 hours, how many hours in a day go in maintenance of body? And how many hours goes in maintenance of spiritual life, Mother?
That's why I said we have to, for sincerity, we have to endeavor a lot.
Not we have to endeavor, even with a little endeavor, we are able to make such a progress. That's an evidence that despite knowing the fact, let's talk about yourself, despite knowing the fact, Krishna Bhakti, who we are, yet with whatever we have, we're able to situate ourselves. You know, of course, the struggles continues on because we're in the material world. But the amount of effort we need to put in the material life is tremendous. So just want to paraphrase all of you, what you said is correct. The point is, we have reconditioned ourselves in a wrong way. And now to reinstate our original Swarupa, we need to, whatever we have learned, we have to forget. So therefore, as Chaitanya Bhagavan Prabhu was saying, we need to uncover. We have covered ourselves with the material contamination. We have to uncover ourselves. So there is a prayasa in spiritual life, but the prayasa in spiritual life is way, way simple, way lesser as compared to prayasa the karmis make. That is what Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura takes a discussion. And he makes a point. He says, how much karmis, and he says two things. Śrīla Prabhupada also talks about it. And he makes 2 points. There are 2 kinds of prayasa. One prayasa is done by karmis, another prayasa is done by jnani. So here, let's take a look at about jnanis. Brahmaji says to Krishna, this is 10th canto, chapter number 14, verse number 3. He talks about it. That both of these prayasa are done for acquiring knowledge. Jnana, actually, the jnana which is mentioned here, is different than practice of bhakti. It's not bhakti jnana. The jnana refers here to understand, as to have, the person having an understanding that I'm one with the Lord. That kind of jnana is being disregarded. So Brahmaji says, so Mother, are you showing the verse? 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 3. You got to be attentive for these verses. Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukrita bhavadiya vartam sthane sita shruti-gatam tanuvan manobhir ye prayaso jita piyasita yastrilokyam. So here, jnane prayasam. So verse, please. Can we go to the verse only? Show the Sanskrit, please. So jnane prayasam. So here talk about the effort put by the jnanis. Utpasya namanta eva. Giving up the endeavors which are taken by the jnanis. If you remember Bhagavad Gita, and the life and the austerities that jnanis have to perform is being discussed, particularly in the 5th chapter, also in the 6th chapter a little bit. And it's very, very tedious. Here Brahma is saying, give up all this effort. Namanta eva. What you do? Offer respects and obeisancy. Jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam. And engage your ears in hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ye prayasho jita jito. If you make this endeavor to engage your tongue in chanting the glories and engage your ears in hearing about the glories of the Lord, when you make ye prayasho ajita jito, ajit, one who cannot be conquered, becomes conquered. Api asites trilokyam. That's the way of conquering the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similar thing is mentioned in the next verse, 10:14:4. I'll just paraphrase that verse. O Lord, bhakti alone is the path of auspiciousness for the jiva. Giving this up, persons who endeavor for attaining realization of Kevala Advait attain only suffering. Just as beating empty husk does not yield rise, so endeavors of Kevala Advait yield no spiritual result. In other words, our original constitutional position is to be the servant of the Lord. And this position is dormant within everyone, and it is awakened by our spiritual practice sadhana. And now here comes a very beautiful point. One does not have to endeavor in sadhana bhakti as much as it is required in jnana kanda and karma kanda. Therefore, said is a very simple and easy process. Chant, dance, eat Krishna prasadam, go back home, back to Godhead. Is a, what is that? 9th chapter, right? Rajvidyam Rajpagyam. That was Pavitram Idam Uttamam. That was Sukham. Susukham Kartum Avyam is a very blissful process. And you can read it. I'm not going to quote it now. 12th chapter, verses 2 to 5 talks about how Jnani endeavors like this. And for karmis, karmi also endeavor. I believe Prabhupada quotes the next verse, 1.2.8 and 9. Prabhupada have quoted the 9th verse here. Dharma sunustisaha pumsam vishwakshena kathasuya na utpadya dyatiratam shama evahi kevalam. You have done all kinds of endeavor, but shama evahi kevalam, all is useless by your endeavors. Na utpadyat yadiratim. If taste for hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord have not developed, all that fruitive action is useless. So that's how these all are useless prayasas. Let's continue reading the next paragraph from the Prabhupada. Prabhupada will now speak about this kind of karmis. Mother Kishore Rani, your hand is up. Please read. Human life is meant for God realization. Kindly unmute, Mother.
Human life is meant for God realization, and the human being is given higher intelligence for this purpose. Those who believe that this higher intelligence is meant to attain a higher state should follow the instructions of the Vedic literatures. By taking such instructions from higher authorities, one can actually become situated in perfect knowledge and give real meaning to life. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.9, Sri Rupa Gosvami describes the proper human dharma in this way. Dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho ratho pakalpate narthasya dharma kantasya kamo labhaya hi smritaha. All occupational engagements, dharma, are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, dharma, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification.
One who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service, dharma, should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Fine. But ultimately, we living in this world has to work, has to engage ourselves. We'll come back to that. Let's read the next paragraph. Continue, Mother. We'll open some questions here. The first step.
The first step in human civilization consists of occupational engagements performed according to the scriptural injunctions. The higher intelligence of a human being should be trained to understand basic dharma. In human society, there are various religious conceptions characterized as Hindu, Christian, Hebrew, Mohammedan, Buddhist, and so on. For without religion, human society is no better than animal society.
Now Prabhupada talks about what is the purpose of dharma. And Prabhupada says, go ahead.
As stated above, dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho rathayo pakalpate. Religion is meant for attaining emancipation, not for getting bread. Sometimes human society manufactures a system of so-called religion aimed at material advancement, but that is far from the purpose of true dharma. Religion entails understanding the laws of God because the proper execution of these laws ultimately leads one out of material entanglement. That is the true purpose of religion. Unfortunately, people accept religion for material prosperity because of atyahara or an excessive desire for such prosperity. True religion, however, instructs people to be satisfied with the bare necessities of life while cultivating Krishna consciousness. Even though we require economic development, true religion allows it only for supplying the bare necessities of material existence. Jivasya Tattva Jignasa. The real purpose of life is to inquire about the absolute truth. If our endeavor, prayasa, is not to inquire about the absolute truth, we will simply increase our endeavor to satisfy our artificial needs. A spiritual aspirant should avoid mundane endeavor.
Hare Krishna. So here comes the question for all of you. We have discussed two things right now, Atyahara and Prayashas. So any thoughts? How can you save yourself, or how can we protect ourselves from both Atyahara and Prayasha? Over endeavor, overeating, over collecting. Any thoughts on it? What can be done for it? So we have talked about the pros and cons of it, how to do, what not to do. But how do I protect myself from falling, becoming victim to over endeavor, over acquiring, overeating? Any thoughts on it? The answer is only one word, by the way, huh? So, yeah, Sandeep, go ahead. Your hand is up.
By taking association of devotees.
Okay.
Or avoiding the association of material.
Okay, so we're gonna come to Janasangha in a short while. Okay, whose hand is up? Mother Manisha, your hand is up.
Controlling the desires.
Hari Om, controlling desires. Generally, desires control us. Controlling desires is a very, very difficult thing, which is good, but it's a little difficult. But good answer, good answer. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, let me put it this way. Why do we engage into it? Even if in case we know of it, after a while, our rail goes off the track and we are again doing things which we should not be doing. I mean, in terms of Atyahara and Prayasha, so just so common, we don't even realize it. So if you can answer why we do it, then you can get an exact answer how we can prevent ourselves. So why we get into Atyahara and Prayashas? Nitai Pran Prabhu.
Oh, because of fear.
Because of fear. Okay, the material world is made up of fear. Okay, interesting point. Mother Medhavni.
Lust, Prabhu.
Lust. Okay, it desires to enjoy. Okay, which makes us very much attached to this material world. In other words, attachment to this material world and attachment to the desire to enjoy leaves it, isn't it? If in case we can somehow develop or cultivate vairagya, which is detachment, then I will not get victimized by Atyahara and Prayasa. Question comes, how can you develop vairagya now? How can you develop
vairagya? So by practice, by being in association of devotees. And
say that, what was the shloka? I missed the first line.
Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena tu. There is
you're quoting Bhagavad Gita. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagya grihate. Okay, good one. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahitukam. That's the answer. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. If we engage somehow or other, we can engage ourselves in bhakti. And for that, other answer which was given by, I believe, Sandeep Prabhu, said association devotees. Indeed, is the right answer in that way. Philosophically, shastrically, Vasudeva Bhagavati. If somehow or other we can keep ourselves engaged in bhakti, we will not automatically develop vairagya and knowledge. And when we develop vairagya because of our continuous practice of bhakti, our tendency to fall victim to Atyahara and Prayasa automatically will reduce. That is how Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura explains this point. All right, so this was about Prayasas. So Atyahara and Prayasha. Let's go to now. Okay. Did I speak about Grahas and Brahmachari? What is Prayasa and what they should not do? I didn't spoke about that, right? So, okay. In other words, for Grahasas, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, right? He should collect and earn wealth in a way that he can easily support his family. The only goal of his life is worship of the Lord. If he always remember this, he will not fall into illusion, either in wealth or poverty, in happiness, suffering, in waking, sleeping. He will quickly attain worship of the Lord. And for renunciate, by no means they should accumulate. Every day he maintains his body by begging and practices bhakti. In other words, they don't make an endeavor to acquire anything. Whatever they are given to them, or whatever facilities are given to them by the ashram leader, by the temple president, or by their guru, they're content with that. That is what Prayasas. All right, let's come to the next subject matter called as Prajalpa. Okay, Rakesh Prabhu, please read. What is Prajalpa? Another impediment is Prajalpa.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Another impediment is Prajalpa, unnecessary talking. When we mix with few friends, we immediately begin unnecessary talking, sounding just like croaking toads. If we must talk, we should talk about the Krishna consciousness movement. Those outside of the Krishna conscious movement are interested in reading heaps of newspapers, magazines, and novels, solving crossword puzzles, and doing many other nonsensical things. In this fashion,
if any one of you thinking, Prabhuji, no social media app is mentioned here, it is only because it wasn't there. Otherwise, Facebook and WhatsApp would have never missed out a reference here. I believe Instagram also, right? And probably Twitter also. And maybe whatever modern day apps are there. Because Prabhupada covered everything what was there at that point of time. Interesting, isn't it? Prabhupada mentioned crossword puzzle also. So if you remember, those of you remember, even while I was growing up, every Sunday in those days, Times Now का जो भी newspaper आता था, उसमें crossword puzzle आता था, और मैं भी घंटे तो बैठ के solve करता था. Now imagine Prabhupada had written this back in 70s. So this was there. If the purport would have to be written today, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitter would have a special reference in bold letters. So they really eat up our time. Okay, go ahead, continue.
In this fashion, people simply waste their valuable time and energy. In the Western countries, old men retired from active life play cards, fish, watch television, and debate about useless socio-political schemes. All these and other frivolous activities are included in the Prajalpa category. Intelligent persons interested in Krishna consciousness should never take part in such activities.
Hare Krishna. Śrīla Prabhupada just spoke briefly about it, but Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura goes into detail. And he mentions 8 kinds of Prajalpa. What we should be careful of, all right? So let's pay attention to the 8 kinds of Prajalpa. The first Prajalpa, he says, let me ask this question before. Again, go back to the first verse, Vachavegam, the urge to speak. And now, Srila Rupa Goswami is talking about Prajalpa. Prajalpa means talking between 2 people. So when already urge to speak has been mentioned before, why would Rupa Goswami in such a concise book, a terse book, repeat the same point again? So Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura gives his reasoning, saying that Vachavekam refers to periodical talk. But this Prajalpa refers to every time, every day. So it's more serious than that periodical conversation. So what are these conversations? There are 8 kinds of conversation he highlights, but these are not all in all. After that he says etc., which means there could be many more. So the 8 types of Prajalpa are: first, useless talk. I'll just read out and we'll speak a little about all this. Useless talk, arguing, gossiping about others, debating, fault finding, lying, criticizing devotees, and mundane talk. All right, let's take a look at it. So for useless talk, as Srila Prabhupada have said about this reading newspaper, that's the point. So Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura said, there is so much useless talk in newspapers. Reading newspapers produces great unsteadiness in sadhakas. Not only this, he said, eating with materialists and smoking with them also leads to useless talk. Because if you talk to non-devotee, generally leads to gossiping only, leads to mundane conversation. Not only this, he says, reading novels is also a part of useless talk. So arguing in Sanskrit means vitarka. So for arguing, he quotes Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya from Antilila. This is Madhya Leela, 12th chapter 183 verse, and Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura writes, Taraki kasar gala sange bahu bahu kari sahi mukhe eva sada kahi Krishna Hari. In the association of jackals known as logicians, I simply continue to bark a resounding, I just said bhahu bhahu, So you'll understand a little bit. It's bhew bhew. So you understand the barking of a dog like that. Now from the same mouth, I'm chanting the holy names of Krishna and Hari. So those engaged in deliberating on the spiritual growth should remember the story. Okay, that's all right. So now question arises, arguments. We all have had an experience of getting into an argument. Largely the argument arises because of proving one's point. So why would anyone get into an argument? And Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, we only get an argument because of two things. One, either we are envious of other and we want to prove the person wrong, or else we want to, or we are proud and we want to become proud. In other words, envy or pride, like he says. Either envy or pride, or from hatred or attachment, or else because of foolishness or desiring for fame. Just like we had Keshav Kashmiri, he had come to meet Navadip, right? He had come to Navadip Dham, right? He met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wanted everyone to declare, I'm the greatest Pandit. So desire for fame like this. So this is about arguing. The third is gossiping about others. Talking about others without good reason is contrary to bhakti. It is necessary for the devotee to give up talking about others completely. Any thoughts on this? Useless talk? Any other examples? Arguments, how we get into arguments? Gossiping about others, which means in the absence of an individual, talking about that individual at the back of that, talking about an individual in the absence, like this, gossiping about others. So now here Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, well, it is not always bad speaking about others in their absence. And he gives an example how Sukdev Goswami also speaks about Grahamedis to Parikshit Maharaj. In second canto, first chapter, we have this famous shloka, Nidraya hriyate nakatam vaivayena chame veha devacharthya rajan kutumba bharanenava. So Sukdev Goswami is talking to Parikshit Maharaj saying how Grahamedi lives their life. And here Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, well, this is not gossiping about Grahamedis. A teacher can speak about, the faults of others just to enlighten the student. And like this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also speaks about the false renunciates, or trying to teach his students about how the path of renunciation should be carried out. Many examples are there in Srimad Bhagavatam CC. So it's not called gossiping about others. But if it is done where we are trying to find faults, or we are trying to, minimize others just for the sake of enjoyment, that is called as prajalpa. And the fourth thing he says, debating with others. Just like Srila Rupa Gosvami, what was the name of that another scholar who had gone to debate with Srila Rupa Gosvami? And he said, otherwise you accept my challenge, or else you sign this patra and say that I have been defeated by so and so individual. And Srila Rupa Goswami humbly said, yes, I accept it. So here Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, debating arising from the desire to win is extremely abominable. Then finding faults that should be given up is very detrimental to one's bhakti. Lying, speaking a lie, which is inappropriate, as we understand already. Mundane talk, gossip, other things, particularly. So he says, in the grahastha ashram, little bit is allowed. And what is a mundane talk? Sometimes you have to study geography, history, physics, and you have to teach to students. That mundane talk is allowed. But for renunciate, there is no question of it. That should be given up. And of all of these, the worst of prajalpa is criticizing devotees. One should in no situation criticize a devotee. And he quotes a very beautiful shloka from 10th canto, 4th chapter, where it is mentioned that how if a great devotee is persecuted or criticized, then who does this to a great devotee loses all his opulence, longevity, beauty, fame, etc., etc. That's the point he mentions. And to conclude, maybe we can look in this verse, 11th canto, 28th chapter, verse number 2. This is an interesting verse which needs a little reference here. And it is said, parasvabhava karmani yaha parashamshati nindati sa ashu brashyate swarthat. Hey, this is wrong verse. 11:28:2. 2:8, not 2:0. Asati abhini visheshataha. So 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse number 2. There it is mentioned. The Gyanis who indulge in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly fall from his position of jnana by his entanglement in illusory dualities. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura particularly quotes this verse, and this verse at times becomes tricky. Whoever indulges, see, criticizing is okay. Fault finding, we understand we should not do it. If somebody indulges in praising the qualities and behaviors of others, will deviate from his own best interest and will become entangled in illusory dualities. So, just want to put a disclaimer what it exactly means. This is not about devotees. This is not speaking about glorifying devotees. This is speaking about glorifying non-devotees. And that will bring us to the point of Janasangha. This verse is very important, relevant to this subject matter. Otherwise, we sometimes confuse when you would come across this verse. So it is materialistic people for no reason should be criticized or glorified. That is considered to be a mundane talk. That's about Prajalpa. All right. So shall we take a 5 minutes break and then we continue? It's 1:15. So we have discussed Atyahara, Prayashas, and Prajalpa. Now we're going to talk about Niyam Agraha and Agraha, Janasangha. Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura writes 7 kinds of association which should be given up. And finally, Laulyam, greed. These 6 destroys bhakti. Before we break, any comments? Anyone wants to add something to this discussion about this? We already discussed about this urge to speak in the first verse, I believe in quite a detail. How to best avoid these things, the urge to speak, etc., is to engage oneself in speaking about Krishna. Now, to be able to speak about Krishna, we need to study about Krishna. When we study scriptures, like let's say Śrīla Prabhupada books, then when we meet devotees, they'll often speak about, oh, look, I read this, such a beautiful verse. Machchita madgata prana bodhiyanta parasparam. Katyantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So that to happen, tushyanti cha ramanti cha, it can only happen when we have something to contemplate, think about it, speak about it. And then when we sit and talk about, or even when we converse over the social media or the telephone call, then the conversation becomes, oh, I read this, I heard about this. That is the best way to minimize. If in case we are not reading Prabhupada books every day, if we're not hearing lectures every day, then what to do? Our urge to speak is going to push us. And by default, then we'll become victim to all these unwanted kind of conversations Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura highlighted. Hare Krishna. So anything? These hands are up for reading, or you have something to say? Chaitanya Bhagavan Prabhu.
Prabhu, like as you said, that what is the fine line between these Uttahara and Prayas? Because Uttahara is earning more, for example, and again Prayas means additional endeavoring to earn more, something like that. Some kind of like a distinction or.
So Atyahara and Prayasha is over collecting. That's how Atyahara has been highlighted. And Prayashas is over endeavoring for sense enjoyment. And when you over endeavor, then you over collect. Yeah. So both are to be limited. So Atyahara means you can engage anything and everything, but in the service of the Lord, then it is not bad. However, here in Prayashas, it is mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura to endeavor to even build big temples, to say that I'm going to engage in the service of the Lord, is not at times good for bhakti. Because it can, it really puts you in a lot of it's a big effort. It's a big effort like that. What Srila Prabhupada did was a need of the hour. If we have some seniors advising and guiding, that's a different thing. But to have that, to make an endeavor at oneself, to make big things like this, that falls in the category of prayas. I can read out. He writes very categorically. 1 second. I just skipped that part. So, because you asked. The renunciate should not accumulate at all. Every day he maintains his body by begging and practicing bhakti. All right? Then Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, he does not make efforts in any project. If he enters some project, it is a fault. Attaining Krishna mercy to the extent that he shows humility and sincerity, he will know Krishna Tattva. And then Brahma says in Bhagavatam, Tattva. Now, what it means is not entering any project means, we are not just running around and creating new avenues like this. Somebody has advised. In other words, a renounced order means you have to be instructed. Śrīla Prabhupada, we were discussing about Śrīla Prabhupada in the morning. It is not that Śrīla Prabhupada went to America on his own. Śrīla Prabhupada was instructed by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not just instruct anyone and everyone like this. This was the desire of Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura had the desire because that was the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ultimately. Every town and village would spread, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And everything was coming in that way in instruction. And like that, Prabhupada was instructed, was given an order, and Prabhupada did it. And therefore, in relation to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a very important point is mentioned. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality Godhead. He was always the Supreme Personality Godhead. Yet he showed his, that avatar, Namo Mahavandanaya avatar, only when he went to Gaya and met Ishwarapuri. And when he received an instruction from Ishwarapuri, only then he started doing it. So in that regard. So if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started preaching when Ishwarapuri told him. Srila Prabhupada went to America when Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur gave an instruction. So if your actions are governed by instruction, then it is not prayasa. But otherwise, if you're going and doing things, one should not get involved. That is all about the point about this. To say that I'll endeavor, like many times students say, Prabhuji, if I go to America, if I make more money, if I accumulate more wealth, then I can give more charity. No. Well, if it is needed, if you're required, you'll be told. But that generally doesn't happen. Once you get more wealth, then you find more avenues to enjoy. That's the difference between Atyahara and Prayasha. All right.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Sandeep, your hand is up. Is that for
Hare
reading?
Krishna.
Yes.
No, just one thing through. So many times Grihastha also made efforts to, and they accumulate, looking at for their older age, when they will get old, they need that wealth and money for taking
Say
care
that
of whatever.
again. Sound is not clear. Say that again.
Hare Krishna. Is that okay now?
Yes.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm
Right.
saying Grihasthas also make effort and accumulate wealth for their old age. So is that kind of effort is okay, is allowed? Because for their old age they need this.
See, I mean, old age, in others, you have to maintain yourself, right? That is needed.
Correct.
Vaishnava doesn't mean becomes a burden to the society. Now, when you're making a point to maintain is okay. But point comes is what kind of maintenance? So that is something, of course, it all depends on what had been our upbringing. However, yet Prabhupada emphasizes plain living and high thinking. So whatever comfortable living we might be having before, we should still strive to move towards a more simpler means, simpler way of life. I remember we had Prabhupada's disciples, I'm missing the name, very wonderful family. They were from California and they would live at Udupi, near Udupi actually. I'm missing the name. Prabhuji just, Falani Mati, Prabhuji ka naam kya tha? Haripad Prabhu. I believe last year, Haripad Prabhu departed from this world. Last year or early this year, I believe, sometime he departed. So I remember they used to come often to Njawadi in earlier years. So I remember one of the programs they were mentioning, they were talking to a congregation. They said, we have lived in America, we had all the comfort and convenience. And they were living in Udupi. They didn't have washing machine, they didn't have fridge, they had nothing. And they said, see, we are in Vanaprastha. Sinfalini Mataji said, see, I wash my clothes, he washes clothes, he goes and buy vegetable. We don't have fridge. I cook every day and we get fresh vegetables every day. So I felt that's pretty nice. This is what, wherever we are, whatever comfort of life we might have had, but we have to gradually move towards plain living, simple, high thinking. The reason is, my take on this is, because then you can feel a sense of dependence on the Lord. Because if you're too much protected and comforted by the material things, when would we learn to take shelter of the Lord? And therefore, there was this whole system. You have brahmacharya jivan, grahastha jivan, vanaprastha, and then you have sannyasa ashram. Gradually increasing your dependence on the Lord. Not sudden. From grahastha, not sannyas. Then there is vanaprastha. Somebody can take it, that's a different thing. But there was a stage of vanaprastha. Now you give up your dependence on all material comforts. And finally, you give a dependence on your wife also to take care of you. So, to the degree we give our dependence on the things of this world, to that degree we become dependent on the Lord. So that's the way, that's how our system has been designed like that. All right, Sandeep Prabhu. Largely our personal life has to be designed, like somebody who's guiding us, knows us regularly for a particular ashram, has to be designed in that way, under the consultation. That is helpful. Hare Krishna. All right, so this is 125. Let's take a quick Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam.
Yes, Mother Manju.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, as you said this conversation, I would like to ask now if Grahastha is willing to, means they want to start some Bhakti Vedanta school or some ashram for the old age. So will it be considered as a extra endeavor, or will it be
Śrīla
means
Prabhupada in the
it will be
first
in the
canto says, correct. In the first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, Śrīla Prabhupada says, I often repeat that, any and every endeavor, if it is blessed by seniors, is auspicious regardless of the result.
Okay.
How much
So
ever
we should
auspicious
have.
the endeavor, if we just take it upon ourselves without the blessings, then it is always doomed, regardless of the result again. The success, the result does not determine success. This is a fruitive mentality. If I do something and if I get a result, what I expect, that's a success. That is such a wrong understanding. The parameter of success is not that. Parameter of success, were we able to please? If I have not taken up permission of blessing for somebody, so whom are we pleasing? If anyone can begin to say, take up any action, I'm pleasing Guru and Krishna, who attests to that?
Okay.
Who acknowledges
So
that?
we have to, so we have to seek the means permission. We have to take the permission of our Guru Maharaj or something, is what you meant to.
See, if you have access to Guru Maharaj, okay. If not, in our ISKCON culture, next to Guru Maharaj, we have Shiksha Gurus, we have mentors, and within that we have temple president, because ideally all of us should be connected to some local ISKCON temple. Maybe not local, now is a time of global connection. All right, maybe at least you're connected with somebody who you're accountable to. So then the permission should be. And it should be, Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura particularly uses the word sincerity. One should be genuinely sincere about it. And then it should be taken, and then it is not. If permission is taken, then it is considered auspicious, like that. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you so much, bro.
All right. Thank you for your wonderful questions. So what time it is now 1:28. So we'll have 5 + 2, 7 minutes break. We'll meet at 1:35. And then what we have 3 items. What? Atyahara Prayashas Pajal Janasanga and Niyamagraha, Janasanga and Volume. We'll take those items quickly, okay? And after we come back after the break, then during the last session, we'll some point of time, we'll take your quiz and accordingly mark your attendance. A reminder, लंच के बाद मतलब ब्रेक के बाद गायब मत हो जाइएगा। जगदुरु शीला प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।
Shiva
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Atyahara prayashascha prajalpa niyamagraha janasangascha lolyamcha shadbhir bhaktir vinashati. So we are on the second text of mantra of Upadeśāmṛta. And now we have discussed Atyahara, overeating, over-collecting, Prayashas, over-endeavoring, and Prajalpa. We discussed around 7 types of talks which should be given up. And now we're going to talk about Jana Sangha. So anyone would like to read about Jana Sangha? Huh? Acha, wo reh gaya hai. So I mean, are we going through the flow of the puppet like that? Hare Krishna. Have you made me host? I am a host. You have logged in. What's going on here? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. All right. Venuvardhan Prabhu, please read. I guess we have the discussion now on Jana Sangha in the Prabhupada's puppet. Yes, please start reading.
Janasangha refers to associating with the persons not interested in Krishna consciousness. One should strictly avoid such association. Srila Narottama Dasa Ṭhākura has therefore advised us to live only in the association of Krishna conscious devotees, Bhakta Sana Vasa. One should always engage in the service of the Lord in the association of the Lord's devotees. Association with those engaged in a similar line of business is very conducive to advancement in that business. Consequently, materialistic persons from various associations and clubs to enhance their endeavors. For example, in the business world, we find such institutions such as a stock exchange and Chamber of Commerce. Similarly, we have established the Internal Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have not forgotten Krishna. This spiritual association offered by our ISKCON movement is increasing day by day. Many people from different parts of the world are joining in this society to awaken the dormant Krishna consciousness.
Thank
Shall
you.
I continue?
Yeah, so here Jana Sangha was discussed. Prabhupada now next going to go on to the commentary of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Prabhupada says in Jana Sangha, he mentions that one should strictly avoid association of people who are not in Krishna consciousness. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I would happily enter the cage of a lion, hungry lion, than to live with a non-devotee. Like this, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur makes a point. Anyways, we'll talk about Jana Sangha and other points in a short while. Let's start reading the commentary by Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur. Ojasvi Chaitanya Prabhu, let's read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anuvritti commentary that too much endeavor to acquire knowledge on the part of mental speculators or dry philosophers fall within the category of Atihara, collecting more than needed. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the endeavor of philosophical speculator to write volumes of books on dry philosophy devoid of Krishna consciousness is entirely futile. The work of karmis who write volumes of books on economic development also falls within the category of Atihara. Similarly, those who have no desire for Krishna consciousness and who are simply interested in possessing more and more material things, either in the shape of scientific knowledge or monetary gain, are all included under the control of Atiyahar.
1 second. My Zoom has got some issue. Prabhu, continue reading the next paragraph. Go ahead, go ahead.
Karmis labor to accumulate more and more money for future generation only because they do not know their future position, interested only in getting more and more money for their sons and grandsons. Such foolish persons do not even know what their position is going to be in the next life. There are many incidents that illustrate this point. Once a great Karmi accumulated a vast fortune for his sons and grandsons, but later, according to his karma, he took his birth in a cobbler's house located near the building which in his previous life he had constructed for his children. It so happened that when this very cobbler came to his former house, his former sons and grandsons beat him with shoes. Unless the karmis and gyanis become interested in Krishna consciousness, they will simply continue to waste their life in fruitless activities.
Hare Krishna. So that's the same line of thought, Atyahara and Prayasha, accumulating more and more money. And now here Srila Prabhupada begins to talk about Niyam Agraha or Agraha. So Mother Sangeeta, let's read.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandar Pranams. Accepting some of the scriptural rules and regulations for immediate benefit as utilitarians advocate is called Niyama Agraha. And neglecting the rules and regulations of the Shastras, which are meant for spiritual development, is called Niyama Agraha. The word Agraha means eagerness to accept, and Agraha means failure to accept. By the addition of either of these two words to the word Niyama, rules and regulations, the word Niyamagraha is formed. Thus, Niyamagraha has a twofold meaning that is understood according to the particular combination of words. Those interested in Krishna consciousness should not be eager to accept rules and regulations for economic advancement. Yet, they should very faithfully accept scriptural rules and regulations for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. They should strictly follow the regulative principles by avoiding illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication.
Hare Krishna. Niyam Agraha and Agraha. So, as Prabhupada writes in word-to-word meaning also, he says Agraha means too much neglect and Agraha means too much attachment to. So, either way, becoming too much conscious of rules without understanding the purpose of it, just like the Brahmanas and Brahmana Patnis. Brahmanas were performing their sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord, and the Lord himself sent his Gopa to go and get prasadam, and they rejected. Whereas the Brahmana Patnis, they happily gave. So that is about Niyam Agra, and Agra, where they take it so cheaply. So here it is mentioned, Padma Puran actually says a very beautiful verse, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, Vismartavyo na Jatuchit, Sarva Vidhi. Vidhi means rules and regulation, Nishedha, sure. Vidhi and Nishedha. So there is Niyama Vidhi, and there is a Niyama Nishedha. Niyama Nidhi means what should be followed, to be done, and Niyama Nishedha, according to rules and regulation, what should be given up. Sarva Vidhi Nishedha Sure, Etayor eva Kinkara. Kinkara means a servant. All rules and regulation are the servant to one rule, and that is Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. Always to remember Vishnu. So that's some substance of this discussion. Niyam Agraha and Agraha, like this. Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, not here, but another reference, I believe in Jaiva Dharma, he makes a point to move forward, just like to make a progress, just like climbing a ladder. You have to put a feet forward and take a back foot up, lift it up. Similarly, making a progress, certain things at times have to be given up, and according to one's situation, Krishna consciousness, those rules and regulations are there. One has to accept certain thing, and has to give up the practice which was probably prescribed for him or her at that particular level. Just blindly becoming attached to rules and regulations while missing out the whole purpose. Just like Ekadashi, we don't follow Ekadashi Vrata for the sake of fasting. Ekadashi Vrata is for the sake of remembering Krishna. But if in case we become so self-absorbed in the concept of fasting, wherein we forgot the purpose of fasting, is to remember Krishna, then becomes Niyamagraha. Or else we take Ekadashi so lightly that you can, for example, wow, I'm going to chant 24 hours, whatnot, and we just don't follow Ekadashi also. What is the need for following Ekadashi? In Jagannath Puri, there is no Ekadashi Vrata, so we don't have to follow Ekadashi. That becomes Niyam Agraha, like that. So that's the point about this. Now comes Jana Sangha. There are different kinds of, perfect, they can do it. Let's go to the Jana Sangha. Mother Vasana, please read the next paragraph.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Dhanvat Pranam. One should also avoid association with Mayavadis who simply blaspheme Vaishnavas' devotees. Bhukti Kamis who are interested in material happiness, Mukti Kamis who desires liberation by merging into the existence of formless absolute Brahman, and Siddhi Kamis who desire the perfection of mystical yoga practice are classified as Atyaharis. To associate with such person is not at all desirable. Desire to expand the mind.
Okay, so here Jana Sangha is mentioned, and next paragraph Prabhupada begins to speak about or begin to quote Lolium, and then Prabhupada again goes back to the concept of Atyahara. So what we can do, and then Prabhupada speaks at length about Atyahara, misuse of wealth. Because Jana Sangha has been discussed briefly, we can just a little bit discuss on Jana Sangha and Lolium, and then we'll read the rest of the purport here. Jana Sangha, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Srila Rupa Gosvami writes, Sadhu Sangha Swato Vare. One should always stay in the association of devotees. And he particularly says one should associate with devotees superior to oneself. And then Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura also quote Adi Purana, where the very famous shloka comes, Ye me bhakta janha partha name bhaktas chate janha mad bhakta nam cha ye bhaktas te me bhakta tamamataha. Those who say they are my devotees are not my devotees, but those who say they are devotees of my devotee are in true sense my devotees. So Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura highlights 7 kinds of people whose association should be given up. Or these are the categories of people who have aversion towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What are the 7 kinds of people? Mayavadis and atheists. Interestingly, he clubs both of them together. Because Mayavadi says there is no God, there's all Brahman, naiti. So in other words, they are, like this. And he quotes a wonderful quote from Sri Rupa Gosvami, which is found in Antilila, 2nd chapter, verse number 94-95. Buddhi brashta haila tomara gopalera sange mayavad sunivare upajila range Vaishnava hayayeva sharirak bhashya shune sevya sevaka bhava chadi अपनारे ईश्वर माने. तुम्हारा दिमाग भ्रष्ट हो गया है गोपाल के संग में आकर. You have heard Mayavad Shunivare. You have heard the Mayavad commentary, Sharirika, Sharirika Bhashya. And because this Sevya Sevaka Bhava, you have given up the, Seva Bhav and Apnare Ishwara Mane, and you're thinking yourself to be, कहते हैं Ishwara, like this. And not only this, in fact, I believe this is spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who said, this is in Antilila, Vishaira anna khaile malina hai mana, malina mana haile nahe krishnera smarana. 6th chapter, 278 verse of Antilila. When one eats food offered by a materialistic person, one's mind becomes contaminated. And when the mind is contaminated, one is unable to think of Krishna properly. And Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura goes in more details. I'll skip those details at this point of time. So like this was the point. So Mayavadis and atheists, and second was material enjoyers. In other words, to eat in the hotels outside or to eat food which is not cooked by devotees. For that purpose, we quoted this verse. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Vishaira anna khaile malina haiman. If you eat a food cooked by a sense enjoyer, your mind is going to become contaminated. Third kind of category of people to be, carefully avoided, those who are attached to the association of material enjoyment, like this. Those who are attached to the association of material enjoyment. And then fourth is spoken about. Okay, let's talk about third one. The person attached to the association of material enjoyment. So here Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura actually focuses on pretenders or false gurus. And he says those who have taken a dress of a renunciation or renunciate but still harbor the desire to enjoy this world, their association should be given up. If in any case we found such people to be material enjoyers, then their association should be given up. It's better to live alone rather than being in association of such falgu, sadhakas or devotees. And the fourth and fifth Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura course, which is actually based on the verse which is spoken by Kapila Dev to Mother Devoti in third canto, chapter number 31, verse number 35. Na tatasya bhaven mohu bandhascha anya prasangataha yosis sangat yatha pumso yatha tassangi sangataha. Man's bondage and bewilderment is not due to the attachment to objects as much as it is due to his association with woman and to his association with men who associate with women. So when it is said men towards woman, the same applies to woman to men. Because for either of them, other person, other gender is an object of enjoyment. So Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says the fourth refers to opposite gender and fifth refers to the one who is attached to opposite gender. And this was categorically mentioned. So having an attachment or attraction for opposite gender is risky. But more risky is the association of those who are attached to opposite gender. The reason is because these people will talk more about that person. And you will have different katha, lila katha, something would go on. And that is what such association should be given up. And the sixth is of pretenders. These are dharmadvijis, somewhat related to those who are also material enjoyers. And finally, the seventh, he says, association should be given up of those who are sinful, foolish, just like the seventh chapter talks about, what is that? The four kinds of people who do not surrender to Krishna. Naradhama, like that. Those foolish people. Maya aparat jnana, asuram bhava mashitaha. So those are all categorized in the foolish. So he says those who consume wine, those who eat meat, who are drinking, who are addicted to sex life, such foolish people who are living on an animalistic platform, their association should be avoided, like that. And to conclude with, he quotes sage Katyayana, and he says something very interesting. Varam huta vaha jwala panjarantar vayavastitihi na shauri chinta vimukha jana swamsha vaishasham. And Katyayana ji says in Katyayana Samhita, I am happy to enter a cage of fire than to face the calamity of living with people who are averse to worshipping Vishnu. Hare Krishna. That was about Jana Sangha. There are a lot of questions coming to my mind, but let's finish the puppet. So now let's read the Lolyam part. Mother Sri Lakshmi. Lolyam, greed. Lolyam also means, the other meaning of word Lolyam is Vasana, desires. And there are two kinds of Vasanas. We'll take to it. Let's Mother Sri Lakshmi read it first. Please go ahead. Desires to expand the mind.
Desires to expand the mind by perfecting mystic yoga, merging into the existence of Brahman, or attaining whimsical material prosperity are all included within the category of greed, lavlya. All attempts to acquire such material benefits or so-called spiritual advancement are impediments on the path of Krishna consciousness.
So lalya also means desire. Desire means vasana. And there are two kinds of vasanas which we need to give it up, which Srila Rupa Gosvami teaches in Nectar of Devotion. He dedicates chapters for it. We read the first 19 chapters of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Does anyone remembers what kind of two vasanas should be given up? What kind of vasanas to be given up? All right. Bhukti mukti sprahayavat pishashi hiti vartate tavad bhakti sukhasyatra katam abhyudaye bhavet. Bhukti and mukti. These two should be given up, which act as a which. Bhukti is desire for enjoyment. Mukti is desire for liberation. Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura says, Bhukti means to enjoy this life. Mukti means to enjoy the next life. Both these desires should be given up. And Mukti also means desire to attain Sayujya Mukti, merging with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these two desires are very, very difficult to give up, very dangerous on the path of bhakti, and such kind of lalya should be given up. So here, before we continue reading further, Prabhupada now talks about capitalism, communism a little bit on the Atyahara side, how they're misusing the wealth. There are 6 elements which have been discussed here: Atyahara, Prayasha, Prajalpa, Niyamagra, Janasanga, and Lalyam. Janasanga giving up bad association, Lalyam giving up greed, Niyam, Agraha, Agraha, following the principles with having a right understanding, not missing the purpose. And then we have Prajalpa. The way to counter Prajalpa is to, as much as possible, engage in talking about Krishna. Machita, Madgata, Prana, Bodhiyanta, Parasparam. For that, we have to read, we have to hear about Krishna. And Atyahara, simple living, high thinking. Same with Prayashas. Whatever you do, it should be done by the blessing of the seniors and superiors. Then it is all considered auspicious. So now, question for all of you. While living in this world, we have to associate with people. And just most of you are professionals. You have to go out and meet. We are living in the world where we have people like this. Although we associate with devotees almost on maybe an everyday basis, we hear classes, we meet in person. But how can we handle this problem of Janasanga? Any thoughts? Janasanga doesn't refer to neighbors and unknown people. At times it refers to our own dear friends, our childhood friends, and could also refer to parents at times, our family members. So I'm just asking a question. What is your thought process on this? How do you take the subject matter of Janasanga? Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura is very clear, scriptures are very clear. This would just not allow the seed of bhakti to sprout. Okay, we have a couple of hands up here. Chaitanya Bhagwan Prabhu, let's hear from you first.
So in this regard, I heard one thing from that Radha Prabhu's lecture. It was very nice. He said, don't isolate, insulate. So which is insulate means don't isolate from the people in office or this.
Correct. Isolate is clear. Please explain insulate.
Insulate means, for example, like say, whatever they're doing or so that do not influence you, which needs, of course, a spiritual, through your sadhana be strong inside so that you do not.
So best way is isolate, not isolate, but insulate. In other words, don't create an environment of aversion.
Good.
Insulate yourself means have a strong morning program, have a strong sadhana. So therefore, when the question comes, why we have to chant 16 hours? So in other words, why did Srila Prabhupada did not go below 16 hours? Because there's a verse that comes which says, if in case an individual chants minimum of 25,000 times the names of the Lord, then he'll be protected from the influence of material energy. And if you count the 16 rounds of Mahamantra, multiply it, 16 into 108, into 16, because each mantra has 16 times the name of the Lord, it comes somewhere at 26,000 plus, like that. So if we have, rather than isolating, insulating ourselves means have a strong morning program, have a strong sadhana, so that we can interact and we can try to share Krishna consciousness. Because if we try to take the path of isolation, then there cannot be no outreach or preaching. And our whole path is of sharing Krishna consciousness. So when we try to disconnect ourselves from the society, it sets a very bad example. Okay, so Jana Sangha, any other thoughts onto this? Mother Priya, your hand is up. What are the thoughts on
Hare
subject
Krishna,
matter?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandath. Yeah, Prabhu, I think I remember when we were talking about Uttam Adhikari, Kanishth Adhikari, that we should have association, but at what level we should have, we need to see. Like, suppose we try to preach, if the other person is completely kind of against and he comes down to a place where talking insane things, then maybe we just stop and just do whatever office work is there and just stop over there. But if there is a way to preach, we preach, and if there is devotee, we obviously try to take his association and we try to learn from him. So I just remember this from one of the lectures.
All right. If you see the baseline of every of these things is, do not try to enjoy. In other words, not that way. I'm sorry, not to say that do not try to enjoy. In other words, do not try to fulfill your material desires. Do not find happiness and joy in such things. Do it as a sake of service. Even if you need to associate, even if you need to travel out with them for any outing, etc., do it as a sake of service. Do not do it as an opportunity for me to take a break from spiritual life. That's a key component. So what is renunciation? Is to give up the desire to enjoy. Now we cannot give up the desire to enjoy unless param drashtva nivartate. The equation has to be completed. Unless we have param drashtva nivartate, unless we have developed a higher taste, unless we are finding some joy somewhere, we cannot give this joy. In other words, if we are not happy and content in our Krishna conscious life, in the services that we do, then what to do? Nothing to do. We go back to default. We become defaulters. It's just by default, we become defaulters. There's nothing else can be done about it. Therefore, His Holiness Devamay Swami Maharaj was making a very profound statement. I really liked it. And he said, at least for the renounced order, he made a point that they have to find their joy in the service that they do. The service should give them a sense of fulfillment. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj says, every devotee should take up some responsibility in the mission of Śrīla Prabhupada, because that gives a sense of inner fulfillment. I'm contributing something, I'm doing something. If we don't have responsibility or some service for which we can stand for, then by default, we will get drifted. In the beginning, when things are new, things are fresh, we like reading Prabhupada books, we like to be around with devotees, we like hearing kirtans, we like doing deity worship, we like cooking prasadam, bhoga for the Lord, offering for the Lord. Everything goes fine for a few years. But once it becomes hackneyed, monotonous, it becomes dull and repetitive. The moment it becomes dull and repetitive, and then when you look out of the window, the material world looks so colorful, so enjoyable. What this Hare Krishna people brainwashed me, Ray? Life looks so wonderful. I've been taught wrong. And then you begin to think life was so wonderful. Oh, where did I come? Where did I go? What did I do about all this thing? So these kind of things happen. This kind of relapse happens. So for all of these things, the base point is bhakti. If in case we are cultivating bhakti nicely, the main point was, as Rupa Goswami said, bhakti Rasamrita, be in association devotees, largely in association of senior devotees. I'll say that point again. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. I read that point, right? And he says, Sadhu Sangha Svatovare. Sadhu Sangha Svatovare, be in association devotees, and particularly always associate with one's superior. That superior relationship is there, then Param Drashtva Nivartate, everything happens, and we stay protected, and we don't get distracted. Bhoga Aishwarya Prasaktanam does not bother us so much. That's the baseline of this whole subject matter. And that's how we can give Atyara, Prayasha, Prajalpa, Nimagra, Janasanga, and Lolim. That's the way of it. By having Param Drashtva Nivartate. Lord Shri Krishna just summed it up in one simple verse. And that's how we can give it up. All right, so before we move forward, I know some of you might have to sign out because time is coming close. Why don't we have attendance for all of you now? Okay. And the means of taking attendance is surprise quiz test. All right, Nitai Pran Prabhu or anyone, Mother Medhavani, all of your co-hosts. Unfortunately, I can't launch the poll. So can you launch the quiz, please? So is the quiz launched?
Yes, Prabhu, it's there on the screen.
अरे ना तो मैं लॉन्च कर पा रहा हूँ ना देख पा रहा हूँ. धोखा है ये. ठीक है, fine. So how much time? 5 questions. We can give what? 10 seconds for each. 1 minute for answer. Okay, your timer starts now. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So I don't have questions with me right now here. So let me see if I can pull out. How many done? Nitai Pranpu, what's the status? How many devotees I will do? They're just 5 simple questions. Can anyone read out the questions?
Yeah, should I read out the question?
Yeah, please, because I don't have access to it.
The first question: there will be no difficulty in maintaining the body if we. So it's
All
a
right.
multiple choice.
Next question.
Right.
Just read the questions.
The first step in human civilization consists of.
Okay.
Third,
Next.
Prajalpa means. Fourth,
Kalpa.
Prajalpa.
प्रजल्पा. मैं कहा कल्पा कहाँ से आ गया? ये तो सब्जेक्ट मैटर ही नहीं था. कल्पा तो मैंने भागवतम क्लास में डिस्कस करा था. I thought I gave wrong questions. Okay. प्रजल्पा. Okay. Go ahead.
Number 4, Janasangha refers to.
Okay.
And number 5, Atahari includes.
Atyahari includes. All right. So how many inputs we got so far?
33 out of 51.
33. We have 55 participants. Why 51?
I'm not sure. Here it is showing 51.
I'm one of them. So 54.
Yeah,
so
because
you,
I think
those
it's
who
not
launched,
including admins. Yeah, because we
okay,
can't.
the co-host. So 3 of you are co-host here. That makes 51. So shall we close it now? What's the status? What is the result? Okay, let's count the last 5. I'm going to count the timer and we close the quiz. And all of you are able to submit?
Yeah, we still have 6 more.
Oh, जब counting शुरू होगी तो हो जाएगा वो. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm pausing. Those of you just quickly press your submit button now. Okay, all right. 0.5. Okay, 0 done. Nitai Pranpu. If you can publish the result, something we can see then what's going on. Something came. मुझे नहीं दिख रहा, ये तो बहुत दुख है,
I've shared the results. Are everyone able to see it?
Okay, everyone is able to see, not me. Prabhu, bring it here. The laptop.
Yeah,
so I can see.
It's showing.
You can give the summary, Nitai Pranpu. What's the summary?
Yeah, see, sorry, I can't even see. Medhavani Mataji, have you shared the?
I have
Yeah,
the
I
results
just
here.
shared the results here on the
Perfect.
screen.
So first question, there will be no difficulty maintaining the body if we do not collect more than necessary for our needs. If we surrender to Krishna. Okay, interesting. Live a balanced, peaceful life. 2%. Okay. The first step in human civilization consists of, first step, what do you all say? Occupational engagements performed according to the scriptures. Understanding that there is more to life than eating, sleeping. Hearing from a bona fide source. It's interesting, huh? Okay.
Yeah, none
Third,
of the above.
none of the above. So what is your answer, bhai? Batao.
No, I'm asking whoever has given none of this.
Prajalpa means unnecessary talking, reading newspaper, playing cards, fishing TV. Yes, all of the above. उसमें भी unnecessary talking about the 15 for 19% made it wrong. Huh? Jana Sangha refers to association with spiritually minded people. ये कौन है ये? मैं तुम्हारे नाम निकालता हूँ, तुम्हारे पूरे NI क्लास दोबारा रिपीट कराऊंगा मैं. जनसंघ means association with spiritually minded people. ये जिसने भी करा है बिल्कुल सोते सोते क्विज करा है. हाँ ठीक है. And what is this? Associate with worldly minded people. ठीक है, उसमें भी 100% नहीं आया. Atyaharis include bhuktis, muktis, siddhis, all of the above. Okay, all of those is the correct answer. The questions are simple only. Fine. Hare Krishna. So, okay, we need to finish the purport now. We just complete the reading of it. The last part of the discussion, 5 minutes, and we conclude for today. Who has not read so far would like to read it? Madhulila Nandini, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Modern,
yes, please go.
Modern warfare waged between capitalists and communists is due to their avoiding the advice of Srila Rupa Gosvami regarding Atyahara. Modern capitalists accumulate more wealth than necessary, and the communists, envious of their prosperity, want to nationalize all wealth and property. Unfortunately, the communists do not know how to solve the problem of wealth and its distribution. Consequently, when the wealth of the capitalists fall into the hands of the communists, no solution results. Opposed to these two philosophies, the Krishna conscious ideology states that all wealth belongs to Krishna. Thus, unless all wealth comes under the administration of Krishna, there can be no solution to the economic problem of mankind. Nothing can be solved by placing wealth in the hands of the communists or the capitalists. If a $100 bill is lying on the street, someone may pick it up and put it in his pocket. Such a man is not honest. Another man may see the money and decide to let it remain there, thinking that he should not touch another's property. Although this second man does not steal the money for his own purposes, he is unaware of its proper use. The third man who sees the $100 bill may pick it up, find the man who lost it, and deliver it to him. This man does not steal the money to spend it for himself, nor does he neglect it and let it lie in the street. By taking it and delivering it to the man who has lost it, this man is both honest and wise.
Who is the third man? The first two men were capitalists and communists. Who is the third man? Who knows to whom it belongs? Bhoktaram, Yagantapasam, Sarvaloka, Maheshwara. So the next set of paragraph talks about proper use of wealth. Prabhupada quotes Ishopanishad like this. And then following up, Prabhupada quotes this 5th chapter, verse number 29, Bhoktaram Yagnatapasam, where how a Lord is the real enjoyer. And let's go to the last page, reading the last two paragraphs, conclusion and the purpose of ISKCON. Mother Priya, you can read the second last paragraph.
Hare Krishna,
Yes.
When human society gives up these elementary faults enumerated by Srila Rupa Gosvami, Atyahara, etc., all enmity will cease between men and animals, capitalist and communist, and so forth. In addition, all problems of economic or political maladjustment and instability will be solved. This pure consciousness is awakened by the proper spiritual education and practice offered scientifically by the Krishna consciousness movement. This Krishna conscious movement.
So this pure consciousness awakened by the proper spiritual education and practice offered scientifically by the Krishna consciousness movement. So the sum and substance of this verse is, if you want to overcome this force, we have to cultivate bhakti. The last paragraph, Desh Deepak Prabhu, you can read it. Kindly unmute. Are you signed in from multiple devices?
This Krishna conscious movement offers a spiritual community that can bring about a peaceful condition in the world. Every intelligent man should purify his consciousness and rid himself of the above mentioned 6 hindrances to the devotional service by taking wholehearted shelter of this Krishna conscious movement.
Hare Krishna. By taking wholehearted shelter of Krishna conscious movement, in the verse, by taking to bhakti, one can overcome these 6 faults. with that, we conclude this particular verse, or at least we discuss. I would not say we conclude. We did some discussion. Any concluding comments? Anything? Anyone wants to add on to the subject matter of the 6 faults? Okay. So thank you all very much. Jagadguru Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. So
I have
next
a question.
Saturday. Oh, okay. Coming to you, Shashwat Prabhu.
Yeah.
Next Saturday is कहते हैं Radhashtami. So I believe it will be difficult to have a class, if I'm correct, right? So we'll skip next Saturday. What do you all say about it?
Yes, Prabhu.
Because everyone would have a festival for that reason. Okay. What time is generally we'll have celebration in the evening, right? Abhishek ceremony.